Before the Sharingan became legend, the Uchiha were a clan of fire, love, loss, and unbreakable will. Tonight, we'll follow their story from ancient beginnings to redemption. Get comfortable, relax, and if you enjoy sleepy anime stories, please like, subscribe, and join Sleepy Otaku Stories for more peaceful journeys. Long before the Hidden Leaf Village rested beneath its quiet mountain faces, long before the Uchiha name was whispered with fear, pride, or awe, the roots of their story began in an age that felt almost like legend. The shinobi world was still young then, shaped by ancient chakra and the teachings of Indra Otsutsuki, the sage of six paths. He had seen the danger of power when it was held alone, so he tried to guide people toward connection, understanding, and peace through a teaching called ninshu. Hagoromo had two sons, and the elder was named Indra. From the time he was young, Indra seemed touched by brilliance. His mind was sharp, his chakra was strong, and his eyes carried a strange depth, as if he could see through more than what stood in front of him. He learned quickly, moved with natural grace, and carried himself with the quiet certainty of someone born beneath a powerful destiny. To those around him, Indra looked like the obvious heir to everything his father had built. Yet Indra's strength was not only in his power. It was in his focus, his discipline, and the way he pushed himself beyond every limit placed before him. He believed that peace could be protected by strength, that order could be created if someone powerful enough stood at the center of the world. There was something inspiring in that fire, because Indra did not want to be weak, and he did not want the world to fall apart. He wanted to matter. He wanted his power to have meaning. His younger brother, Ashura, was different. Ashura was not born with the same natural genius, and for a long time he struggled to stand beside Indra's brilliance. But Ashura had a warmth that drew others close. He leaned on people, listened to them, grew with them, and slowly discovered that strength could be shared. Where Indra looked inward and sharpened himself like a blade, Ashura reached outward and found power through bonds. The two brothers became the first great symbol of two paths that would echo through history. When Hagoromo looked at his sons, he saw more than talent. He saw the future of chakra itself. Indra had incredible ability, but he had begun to believe too deeply that power alone could bring peace. Ashura, through struggle and friendship, had learned that peace needed trust, patience, and the support of others. So Hagoromo chose Ashura to carry on his will. It was not because Indra was worthless or because his strength was evil. It was because Hagoromo feared what loneliness might do to a heart that powerful. That choice wounded Indra deeply. The proud elder son, who had worked so hard and stood so brightly, felt overlooked by the father he wanted to honor. In that pain, the ancient darkness hiding in the world found a place to whisper. Black Zetsu, still moving in secret through history, began to twist Indra's grief and resentment. What had once been determination became bitterness. What had once been love for peace became a desire to prove that his way was the only way. From that sorrow, the long rivalry between Indra and Ashura began. It was not just a battle between brothers, but the beginning of a cycle that would return again and again through their descendants. Indra's will would someday flow into the Uchiha Clan, carrying his fire, his pride, his lonely brilliance, and the powerful eyes that could awaken through intense emotion. Ashura's will would pass into others who believed in bonds, endurance, and hope. Their conflict became a quiet shadow beneath generations of shinobi history. But even here, at the beginning, the Uchiha legacy was not simply darkness. It began with a boy who wanted to be strong, who wanted to protect the world, and who wanted his father to see the value in his dream. Indra's path became tragic because his love turned inward until it became pain, but the flame he left behind was still extraordinary. From him came a clan of warriors whose hearts burned brighter than most, and whose story would one day become one of the most powerful legends in the ninja world. Generations passed after Indra's time faded into legend, and the world continued to change beneath the quiet turning of history. His descendants carried pieces of his spirit forward, not always knowing the full weight of the power sleeping inside their blood. Over time, they became known as the Uchiha, a clan whose name would come to stand beside flame, fierce devotion, and eyes unlike any others in the shinobi world. Even before villages existed, their presence on the battlefield was enough to make enemies move carefully. The Uchiha were not powerful because they were empty of feeling. They were powerful because they felt deeply, sometimes more deeply than anyone around them understood. Love burned strongly in them, whether it was love for family, comrades, pride, or the dream of protecting what belonged to them. But when that love was torn away, the pain could awaken something hidden inside their eyes. From that powerful emotion came the Sharingan, the crimson eye that could read movement, pierce illusion, and turn battle itself into a dance of vision and instinct. To the outside world, the Sharingan seemed frightening, almost unfair, as if the Uchiha could see one step into the future. But within the clan, it was also a symbol of hardship. It did not awaken from comfort or ease. It often opened through shock, loss, and the sharp moment when the heart realized the world could take away what it loved. That made the Sharingan beautiful and tragic at the same time. It was proof of strength, but also proof that the one who carried it had been changed by pain. Alongside their eyes, the Uchiha became masters of fire. Their fire-style techniques were more than weapons. They were like signatures written across the battlefield. Young Uchiha trained to breathe chakra into flame, learning discipline, control, and courage with every spark they released. To stand among them was to feel the heat of a clan that refused to disappear. Their fire was fierce, but it was also steady, passed from parent to child, like a promise that their name would continue. The shinobi world in those days was harsh. Clans were hired for war, children were raised around danger, and peace often felt like a distant dream no one could hold for long. The Uchiha survived by becoming sharp, organized, and proud. They protected one another with a loyalty that could be breathtaking, because family meant everything in a time when the next battle might take someone away. Their strength was not only in jutsu or weapons, but in the bond that kept them standing together through endless conflict. Yet the same qualities that made the Uchiha inspiring also made their story heavy. Their pride helped them survive, but it could also isolate them. Their love gave them power, but grief could twist that love into anger. Their eyes made them legendary, but being feared by others slowly built walls around them. Long before the Hidden Leaf Village was born, the shape of their future was already forming. A clan admired for its brilliance, watched for its danger, and misunderstood because of the intensity of its heart. Still, there was something noble in the Uchiha way. They trained hard, honored strength, and carried themselves with a quiet confidence that demanded respect. They did not step lightly through history. They moved like a clan that knew the world was cruel, but believed they could meet that cruelty with sharper eyes and brighter fire. Even when their path became shadowed, the source of their power remained tied to something deeply human. The refusal to stop loving, even after love had caused them pain. So the Uchiha clan grew beneath the long night of the old shinobi world, becoming one of its most feared and unforgettable names. Their story was not yet centered on Madara, Itachi, Obito, or Sasuke, but the fire that would shape all of them was already burning. In every generation, the clan carried Indra's lonely brilliance forward, along with a strength that could protect, destroy, inspire, and break. And somewhere in that ancient flame, the next great chapter of the Uchiha legacy was waiting to awaken. Before the Hidden Leaf Village had a name, before the great stone faces watched over peaceful streets, The land was divided by clans who knew more about war than rest. The Uchiha and the Senju stood at the center of that age, two powerful families hired again and again to fight battles that seemed to have no true ending. Children learned the weight of weapons too early, and even the brightest dreams had to grow in the shadow of loss. It was in this world of endless conflict that a young Madara Uchiha first began to understand how heavy being strong could feel. Madara was already fierce, proud, and full of promise. He carried the sharp spirit of the Uchiha in the way he stood, the way he spoke, and the way his emotions burned just beneath the surface. He had brothers he loved deeply, especially Izuna, and that love made him fight harder in a world that threatened to take everything away. To others, Madara could seem intense and distant, but beneath that pride was a boy who had seen too much death and wanted a future where children would no longer be sent to die for clan names. One quiet day, away from the battlefield, Madara met another boy beside a river. That boy was Hashirama Senju, though Madara did not know his clan name at first. Hashirama was strange in a way Madara had not expected. He was powerful, but gentle. He was emotional, but brave. He could be silly one moment and deeply serious the next, as if his heart carried both laughter and sorrow at the same time. By the river, the two boys were not enemies yet. They were just children standing beside the same water, looking at the same broken world. At first, their meetings were simple. They skipped stones, challenged each other, argued, laughed, and slowly began to speak about things they could not easily say at home. Madara saw that Hashirama was not weak because he cared. Hashirama saw that Madara was not cold because he was proud. Between them, a quiet friendship began to form, soft and unlikely in a world that had trained them to see strangers as threats. For a little while, the river became a place where the war could not reach them. As they grew closer, their dreams began to take shape. Hashirama wanted to build a place where children could grow old, where brothers would not be buried before they had the chance to live. Madara, though guarded, understood that dream more deeply than he wanted to admit. He knew what it meant to fear losing family. He knew what it meant to wake each day and wonder which loved one might not return. In Hashirama's hope, Madara saw something dangerous, beautiful, and almost impossible, a world beyond endless fighting. The two boys imagined a village where clans could stand together instead of destroying one another. They dreamed of peace not as a vague wish, but as something with walls, homes, families, and children laughing without fear. For Madara, this dream was not soft, it was bold. It took courage to imagine peace in a world addicted to war. It took strength to believe that tomorrow could be different from yesterday. In those quiet conversations by the river, Madara's fire burned not with hatred, but with the desire to protect something better. But the world around them was not ready to release its grip. The Uchiha and Senju were enemies, and neither boy could escape the truth forever. When their clan identities came closer to being revealed, the friendship that had felt so natural began to tremble beneath the weight of history. Madara and Hashirama were not just two boys anymore. They were heirs of opposing powers, carrying family loyalty, battlefield grief, and the expectations of everyone who had come before them. Still, that meeting by the river became one of the most important moments in the Uchiha story. It showed that Madara was not born as a shadow over the world. He once dreamed of peace. He once stood beside a Senju boy and believed they might build something better together. Before the Valley of the End, before the Nine Tails, before the long darkness that followed him, Madara Uchiha was a young warrior with a wounded heart and a beautiful dream burning quietly inside him. The quiet river could not protect Madara and Hashirama forever. Beyond its banks, the world still belonged to clans, weapons, and old hatred passed down like inheritance. The Uchiha and the Senju continued to meet on battlefields where even children were expected to carry the weight of their family names. For a little while, Madara and Hashirama had found a dream together, but the world around them was still built to crush dreams before they could grow strong. The truth finally came into the open when their fathers discovered the secret meetings. Madara was the son of Tajima Uchiha, and Hashirama was the son of Butsuma Senju. Each family saw the other boy not as a child, but as a dangerous enemy who might one day become a weapon against them. When the two fathers tried to use the friendship as a trap, Madara and Hashirama chose to warn each other instead. With stones thrown across the water, they silently told one another to run. That moment changed everything. The river, once a place of laughter and shared dreams, became the place where childhood ended. Madara revealed his Sharingan for the first time before Hashirama, and the truth between them stood as sharp as a blade. They were friends, but they were also Uchiha and Senju. They cared about the same dream, but they belonged to clans that had buried too many loved ones to forgive easily. So they walked away from the river, carrying both friendship and heartbreak inside them. As the years passed, the war took more from both sides. Hashirama had already known the pain of losing brothers, and Madara understood that same wound with terrible clarity. In the Uchiha clan, his younger brother Izuna became the person closest to his heart. Izuna was not simply Madara's shadow. He was strong, proud, loyal, and gifted in his own right, standing beside Madara as one of the clan's brightest warriors. Together, the two brothers became a symbol of Uchiha power. Madara and Izuna fought with frightening skill, their Sharingan burning crimson across the chaos of battle. They were graceful and dangerous, moving like fire given human form. To their enemies, they were terrifying. To their clan, they were hope. But beneath all that strength was love, because Madara's power was never separate from the people he wanted to protect. Every battle he survived made him more determined to keep Izuna alive, as if saving his brother could somehow prove the world had not taken everything from him. On the other side stood Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, brothers bound by their own loyalty and grief. Hashirama still dreamed of peace, but Tobirama had learned caution from years of war, especially toward the Uchiha. When the Uchiha and Senju clashed, it was not just a fight between strangers. It was brother against brother, dream against duty, love against survival. The battlefield became the place where every gentle hope was tested by steel, blood, and the fear of losing family. Then came the wound that changed Madara forever. During one of the brutal battles between the clans, Tobirama struck Izuna down. Izuna survived long enough to be carried away, but the injury was fatal. As his life faded, he entrusted his eyes to Madara, giving his brother the chance to keep fighting with even greater power. Through Izuna's sacrifice, Madara awakened a deeper strength, but it came wrapped in grief. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan became not just a weapon, but a memory of the brother he could not save. From that point on, Madara's dream of peace became darker and harder to reach. He still wanted a world without endless war, but now his heart carried Izuna's absence like a shadow that never left him. The cool, inspiring fire of the Uchiha burned brighter in him than ever, but so did the pain that came with it. Madara was becoming a legend, yet behind the legend stood a brother mourning another brother, trying to turn sorrow into strength in a world that had taught him peace always came too late. After Izuna's death, the war between the Uchiha and the Senju seemed heavier than ever. Madara carried his brother's eyes, his brother's final trust, and the grief of a loss that could never be repaired. With the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, his power became even more fearsome, and the Uchiha looked to him as their strongest leader. Yet, even with that strength, the battlefield continued to take lives, proving again and again that power alone could not bring peace. Hashirama still refused to give up on the dream they had once shared beside the river. Even after years of fighting, even after losing family, he believed the cycle could be broken. He reached out to Madara not as an enemy, but as the friend he had never truly forgotten. Hashirama understood that peace would not come from one clan defeating the other. It would only come if the strongest people in the world were brave enough to stop fighting first. Madara's heart was not easy to reach. Izuna had warned him not to trust the Senju, and that warning lived inside him like a final echo from his brother. To accept peace with Hashirama meant standing beside the clan that had taken Izuna from him. It meant opening his hand after years of holding it around pain. Still, Madara was not blind to the suffering around him. He saw Uchiha children growing up inside the same endless war. He saw a future where even victory might leave nothing behind but graves. At last, the impossible happened. The Uchiha and the Senju agreed to lay down their weapons and build something new together. What had once been only a childhood dream began to take shape as a real village, a place where clans could live side by side instead of meeting only on battlefields. Trees rose around homes, paths formed beneath quiet skies, and families who had once feared the next attack began to imagine a different kind of morning. The Hidden Leaf Village was born from that fragile hope. Madara stood as one of the village's great founders, and his place in history was undeniable. Without his strength, without the Uchiha beside the Senju, Konoha could never have become what it was meant to be. The Uchiha brought their fire, their discipline, their fierce loyalty, and their legendary eyes into the heart of the new village. They were not outsiders at the beginning. They were part of the foundation, one of the mighty roots holding the dream in place. For a short time, it seemed as if Madara and Hashirama had finally reached the world they imagined as boys. Children could train without being thrown immediately into clan wars. Families could sleep beneath roofs instead of moving from battlefield to battlefield. Warriors who had once been enemies could walk the same streets under the same village symbol. The peace was not perfect, but it was real enough to touch, and that made it precious. Then came the question of leadership. The village needed a Hokage, someone who would stand at the center of its future. Madara believed that, as a founder and leader of the Uchiha, he might be chosen. But the people of the village trusted Hashirama more, and Hashirama became the first Hokage. To Hashirama, this was not meant as a rejection of Madara. He still wanted his old friend beside him. But to Madara, the decision felt like a warning that the Uchiha would never truly be trusted the same way. That quiet wound began to grow inside him. Madara looked at the village he had helped create and wondered whether his clan had traded the battlefield for a slower kind of defeat. He saw the Senju rising at the center of power, while the Uchiha stood close enough to serve, but not close enough to lead. The dream had come true, yet it already felt fragile in his hands. And as the leaves of the new village rustled softly in the wind, Madara Uchiha began to fear that peace built without trust could one day become another kind of war. Madara tried to warn the Uchiha, but his words no longer reached them the way they once had. He believed the clan would slowly lose its place inside the village, watched by people who feared their eyes and remembered too clearly the old wars. To him, Konoha had begun as a promise between equals, but now it felt like the Senju dream was becoming the village's true center. Madara saw danger in that future, and because he loved his clan in his own fierce way, he wanted them to see it too. But the Uchiha did not follow him. They were tired of war, tired of wandering, and tired of burying their children beneath banners of old hatred. To many of them, Konoha was not a cage. It was a chance to breathe. They had homes now, families, streets, and a place where their children might grow without waking to the sound of battle. Madara's fear was powerful, but the clan could not abandon the peace they had only just begun to taste. That rejection struck him deeply. Madara had lost Izuna, had made peace with the Senju, had helped build the village, and now even his own clan no longer wanted to walk the road he saw before them. He became more alone than ever, a founder without trust, a leader without followers, a dreamer whose dream had turned cold in his hands. The fire inside him did not fade, but it changed shape. It became harder, quieter, and more dangerous. So Madara left the hidden leaf behind. The village he had helped create remained beneath the trees, but he walked away from it like someone leaving a memory he could no longer bear to touch. In that departure, there was something tragic and grand at the same time. Madara was wrong to let his pain guide him so completely, but he was not small. He was a man with a legendary will, a warrior who refused to live inside a future he believed would betray his people. When he returned, it was not as a founder seeking peace, but as a storm. Madara came back with the Nine Tails under his control, its massive form towering over the land like living disaster. With the Sharingan burning in his eyes, he stood beside the greatest tailed beast as if even that ancient power could be bent to his will. Against him came Hashirama, the first Hokage, still carrying the dream of the village and the sorrow of facing his old friend one final time. Their battle at the Valley of the End became one of the greatest clashes in shinobi history. Madara's perfect Susanoo rose with majestic, terrifying power, wrapping itself around the Nine Tails like armor forged from chakra and legend. Hashirama answered with his own overwhelming strength, calling forth vast wood-style techniques that reshaped the battlefield beneath them. The earth split, the water roared, and two dreams that had once met beside a quiet river now collided beneath the night sky. Even in battle, there was grief between them. Hashirama did not want to kill Madara, and somewhere beneath all his anger, Madara still knew Hashirama was the one person who had once understood him. But neither could step away. Hashirama fought to protect the village, and Madara fought to prove that the village's peace was built on a lie. Their power was enormous, but the heart of the battle was painfully human. Two old friends standing on opposite sides of the future. At last, Hashirama defeated Madara, and the world believed the great Uchiha had fallen. The Valley of the End would forever remember them in stone, with their statues facing each other across the water like silent guardians of a broken bond. Yet, Madara's story did not truly end there. Unknown to the world, he had prepared a hidden escape through Izanagi, allowing history to believe he had died while he continued his plan from the shadows. The village moved forward without him, but the name Madara Uchiha remained like a distant ember, waiting for the day it would burn again. After Madara's defeat at the Valley of the End, the Hidden Leaf Village continued to grow beneath the trees he had once helped protect. To many people, Madara became a warning, a name spoken with unease whenever the old history of the Uchiha was remembered. But the clan itself remained in Konoha, living among the villagers, raising families, training children, and trying to belong to the future they had helped create. The Uchiha were still one of the village's strongest clans, but the shadow of their former leader never fully disappeared. Hashirama's dream of unity survived, yet trust was not something that could be built once and then forgotten. The old wounds between the Senju and Uchiha had closed on the surface, but beneath them, quiet suspicions still remained. Some villagers respected the Uchiha for their strength and discipline. Others feared the Sharingan and wondered if another Madara might one day rise from among them. The clan walked through the village as both protectors and people being watched. When Tobirama Senju became the second Hokage, he looked at the Uchiha with caution. Tobirama was not blind to their talent, and he understood how powerful their love could be, but he also feared what might happen when that love turned into grief and hatred. He had fought the Uchiha for much of his life, and the memory of war shaped the way he saw them. To him, protecting the village meant preparing for danger before it had the chance to grow. So Tobirama created the Konoha Military Police Force and placed the Uchiha at its center. On the surface, this gave the clan authority, purpose, and an honored role in keeping order inside the village. Their crest became tied to law, protection, and discipline. The Uchiha patrolled the streets, handled crime, and stood as visible guardians of Konoha. In many ways, it seemed like recognition of their strength and responsibility. But the role also quietly separated them from the rest of the village's leadership. The police headquarters stood apart from the center of political power, and the Uchiha became known more as enforcers than trusted voices in the village's future. They protected Konoha, but they were also kept at a distance from the Hokage's inner circle. It was a complicated gift, one that gave them respect while also placing them under a kind of watchful boundary. Still, not every Uchiha followed the path of anger or isolation. Among them was Kagami Uchiha, a shinobi who served under Tobirama and carried the will of fire with quiet honor. Kagami proved that the Uchiha heart could burn for the village, not against it. He stood beside comrades from outside his clan and showed loyalty, wisdom, and balance. His presence mattered because it reminded the world that the Uchiha were never just one story, one emotion, or one destiny. The clan continued through the generations, powerful and proud beneath the red and white fan of their crest. Parents taught their children fire style, discipline, and the importance of the Sharingan. Young Uchiha grew up hearing old stories of war, Madara, and the founding of the village, but they also lived ordinary lives inside Konoha's walls. They were brothers, sisters, students, protectors, rivals, and friends. Beneath the legend of their eyes, they were still people trying to carry their name with dignity. Yet the distance between the Uchiha and the village never fully vanished. What began as caution became a quiet pattern, and patterns can shape history as strongly as battles do. The Uchiha remained loyal, useful, and feared, all at the same time. Their fire still burned brightly in Konoha, but it burned behind walls others had helped build around them. And as the years moved forward, that hidden tension waited patiently, preparing the world for the next Uchiha whose heart would change the fate of the village. Years after Madara vanished into legend and the Uchiha continued their guarded life within the hidden leaf, another child of the clan began walking his own path. His name was Obito Uchiha, and at first glance, he did not seem like the kind of prodigy people expected from the Uchiha name. He was often late, easily flustered, and quick to argue when his pride was bruised. But beneath all of that was a warm heart, the kind that stopped to help others even when it cost him time, praise, or attention. Obito dreamed of becoming Hokage. It was a bright, stubborn dream, one he carried with all the sincerity of a boy who wanted people to finally see him clearly. He was not the strongest in his team, and he was not always the most skilled, but he believed deeply that a shinobi should never abandon their friends. That belief made him different. In a clan famous for sharp eyes and fierce power, Obito's greatest strength began as something softer: loyalty that refused to look away. He trained under Minato Namikaze alongside Kakashi Hatake and Rin Nohara. Kakashi was calm, gifted, and disciplined, already carrying the heavy expectations of a genius. Rin was gentle, supportive, and steady, often becoming the quiet center between the two boys. Obito admired Rin deeply, while constantly clashing with Kakashi, whose cold focus on rules made Obito feel small and unseen. Their rivalry was not yet the kind that shook the world. It was the restless friction of young shinobi trying to understand what strength truly meant. During the Third Shinobi War, Team Minato was sent into danger, and the world around them became much harsher than childhood training grounds. Missions were no longer simple tests. Every choice carried weight, and every delay could cost lives. When Rin was captured by enemy shinobi, Kakashi believed the mission had to come first, following the rule that a ninja who broke orders was trash. But Obito could not accept a world where a comrade's life was treated as something secondary. In that moment, Obito's heart burned with the true fire of the Uchiha. He chose to go after Rin, not because it was easy, and not because it made him look strong, but because he believed saving a friend mattered more than obeying a cold rule. His words and conviction reached Kakashi, who followed him at last. Together, the two boys entered the enemy hideout, and in the danger that followed, Obito's courage began to awaken something powerful inside him. When Kakashi was injured and lost his left eye, Obito's emotions surged with fear, anger, and determination. The Sharingan opened in his eyes for the first time, not as a symbol of hatred, but as a sign of love and protection. With his new sight, he moved sharper than before, fighting to save his friend and rescue Rin. For a brief, shining moment, Obito looked like everything he had always wanted to become: brave, capable, and worthy of the Uchiha name. But war rarely allowed beautiful moments to last untouched. As the cave collapsed around them, Obito pushed Kakashi out of danger and was crushed beneath a massive stone. Half his body was trapped, and the dream he had carried so loudly began to fade in the dim light of the battlefield. Yet even then, Obito did not think first of himself. He thought of Kakashi, of Rin, and of the kind of shinobi he wanted his friend to become. As a final gift, Obito gave Kakashi his left Sharingan, asking Rin to transplant it in place of the eye Kakashi had lost. It was one of the most heroic acts in the Uchiha story, a moment where the clan's legendary eye became a symbol of friendship instead of fear. Obito seemed to die believing he had protected the people precious to him, and Kakashi carried his gift forward like a promise. In that quiet sacrifice, Obito Uchiha's light burned beautifully. The light of a boy who wanted to be Hokage and who proved his heart was already worthy of the dream. Obito Uchiha did not truly die beneath the stone, though the world he once knew believed he had. Deep below the battlefield, hidden far from the light of Konoha, his broken body was found and saved by an old man whose name had already become legend. Madara Uchiha, aged and withered but still carrying a will that refused to fade, brought Obito into his secret underground chamber. There, connected to the strange power of the Gedo statue, Madara waited like a shadow from the past, watching for someone whose pain could be shaped into the future he desired. Obito woke in a place that felt almost unreal, surrounded by darkness, strange white beings, and the quiet presence of a man he should have known only from history. Half of his body had been crushed, but Madara used artificial tissue made from Hashirama's cells to keep him alive. Obito was confused, hurt, and desperate to return to his friends. Even after everything, his heart still belonged to Kakashi and Rin. He still believed there was a way back to the bright dream he had carried before the cave collapsed. Madara spoke to him of a cruel world, a world where love always became suffering and where peace could never survive reality. He told Obito about the infinite Tsukuyomi, a dream world where pain, death, and loss could be erased beneath a perfect illusion. But Obito rejected him at first. He did not want Madara's plan. He did not want to abandon the real world. The boy who wanted to be Hokage still lived inside him, and that boy only wanted to heal, grow stronger, and return home to the people he loved. For a time, Obito trained in that hidden place, recovering with the help of the white Zetsu beings around him. His body became stronger, and the power sleeping inside him began to change. Yet his heart remained fixed on one hope: seeing Rin and Kakashi again. That hope was the last warm thread connecting him to who he had been. No matter how dark the underground chamber felt, no matter how cold Madara's words became, Obito still believed that as long as his friends were alive, the world was worth returning to. Then one day, everything shattered. Obito learned that Rin and Kakashi were in danger, and with a desperate heart, he forced himself back toward the surface. Wrapped in a white Zetsu body, he moved through the earth with wild determination, thinking only of reaching them in time. The rain fell heavily when he arrived, as if the sky itself already knew what he was about to see. And there, in the middle of the battlefield, Obito found the moment that broke his soul. Kakashi's Chidori had pierced Rin's heart. Obito did not know the full truth yet, did not understand the hidden cruelty that had placed Rin in that impossible situation. He only saw the person he loved most dying by the hand of the friend he had trusted with his eye and his dream. In that single instant, the world became silent around him. The boy who once believed no shinobi should abandon a comrade watched reality take everything he had tried to protect. His Mangekyo Sharingan awakened in grief, and Kakashi's eye awakened with it. Obito's pain erupted into terrifying power, and the battlefield became a storm of rage, shadow, and blood. He moved through the enemy shinobi like a ghost, slipping through attacks with a strange space-time power that made him seem untouchable. It was the birth of Kamui, one of the most mysterious and dangerous abilities the Uchiha legacy would ever produce. But the power did not feel like victory. It felt like a scream from a heart that had lost its way. When it was over, Obito stood in a world that no longer felt real to him. Rin was gone, Kakashi had collapsed, and the dream of becoming Hokage felt like something from another life. Madara's words returned, colder and heavier than before, and this time Obito listened. He chose to reject the world that had allowed Rin to die, believing that only a dream could save people from suffering. From that night on, the gentle boy who once gave his eye for friendship began walking the path of the masked man, carrying Uchiha love twisted into sorrow, and sorrow sharpened into a terrible purpose. After Rin's death, Obito no longer looked at the world with the same eyes. The dream of becoming Hokage, the warmth of Team Minato, and the hope he once carried all seemed buried beneath the rain of that terrible night. In their place, Madara's plan began to take root. Obito accepted the name of no one, hiding his face behind a mask and moving through the shadows as if the boy he had been had truly died beneath the stone long ago. When Madara's old life finally faded, Obito inherited his will and continued the plan to reshape the world through the infinite Tsukuyomi. He was still young, but grief had made him cold, and the power of his Mangekyo Sharingan gave him a terrifying presence. With Kamui, he could slip through attacks, vanish into another space, and appear like a ghost wherever he wished. The Uchiha fire that once burned to protect friends had become something quiet and dangerous, aimed at a world he no longer believed deserved saving. Years later, on the night Naruto Uzumaki was born, Obito made his move against the hidden leaf. He knew the seal holding the nine tails inside Kushina Uzumaki would weaken during childbirth, and he used that fragile moment to strike. Beneath the silence of night, he separated Kushina from Minato and took control of the nine tails with the power of his Sharingan. The great beast's eyes reflected the crimson pattern of Uchiha control, and the village was suddenly pulled into one of its darkest hours. The nine tails appeared over Konoha like a living disaster, enormous and furious beneath the moonlit sky. Its tails crushed buildings, its roar shook the air, and its chakra filled the village with fear. Shinobi rushed into the streets to protect families and hold back the destruction, while the third Hokage and the village forces fought to slow the beast's rampage. What made the night so frightening was not only the nine tails' power, but the unseen hand guiding it from the shadows. Minato, now the fourth Hokage, quickly understood that someone was behind the attack. When he faced the masked man, he did not yet know he was fighting the student he had once loved and trained. Their battle was swift, silent, and brilliant, a clash between Minato's flying thunder god technique and Obito's Kamui. For a brief moment, teacher and student moved like flashes in the dark, each one trying to read the other's timing. Minato's skill finally overcame Obito's intangibility, wounding him and breaking his control over the Nine Tails. But the damage had already been done. To save the village, Minato and Kushina made the final choice that would shape Naruto's life forever. Kushina, weakened but still filled with fierce love, helped restrain the Nine Tails with her chakra chains. Minato sealed half of the beast within himself and the other half inside their newborn son. Both parents stood between Naruto and the Nine Tails' claw, giving their lives so their child and the village could live into the morning. When dawn came, the hidden leaf was wounded, grieving, and full of questions. Many people did not know the truth about the masked attacker, but they knew the Sharingan had the power to control the Nine Tails. Because of that, suspicion turned toward the Uchiha clan. Even though most of them had not caused the disaster, the fear surrounding their eyes grew stronger. The clan that had already lived beneath quiet watchfulness now found itself pushed even farther from the village's trust. After the attack, the Uchiha were moved to the outskirts of Konoha, separated more sharply from the village they were supposed to belong to. To the clan, it felt like punishment for a crime they had not committed. To the village leaders, it felt like caution after an unthinkable tragedy. Between those two feelings, the old wound widened. Obito's darkness had not only stolen lives that night, it had deepened the divide between Konoha and the Uchiha, setting the stage for another sorrowful chapter in the clan's history. In the years after the Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha clan lived with a silence that grew heavier each day. They still served Konoha through the military police force, still trained their children, still carried the proud fan crest on their backs, but the village's trust had become colder. Their relocation to the outskirts made many of them feel less like honored protectors and more like people being watched from a distance. Inside that quiet divide, two young Uchiha began to shine with a different kind of strength. One of them was Itachi Uchiha, the eldest son of Fugaku and Mikoto. From the time he was very young, Itachi was already a prodigy, calm beyond his years and gifted in a way that made even experienced shinobi take notice. But Itachi's greatness did not come only from talent. He had seen the cruelty of war as a child, and instead of becoming hungry for battle, he became deeply serious about peace. His eyes looked at the world with the sadness of someone who understood too early how fragile life could be. The other was Shisui Uchiha, known across the village as Shisui of the Body Flicker. He was fast, brilliant, and respected, a shinobi whose movement seemed almost untouchable when he crossed the battlefield. Yet Shisui was not only feared for his skill. Like Itachi, he carried a gentle loyalty beneath his strength. He believed the Uchiha could still be part of Konoha's future, and he believed that the village and the clan did not have to destroy each other to be heard. Together, Itachi and Shisui became more than friends. They were like brothers walking a narrow bridge between two worlds. They loved their clan, but they also loved the village. They understood the pain of the Uchiha, but they feared what a coup would bring. In their quiet conversations, beneath trees and evening skies, they carried a burden far too heavy for young men. They wanted to stop a disaster before it began, even as everyone around them seemed to move closer to the edge. At home, Itachi's little brother Sasuke looked up to him with bright admiration. To Sasuke, Itachi was everything an Uchiha should be: graceful, powerful, calm, and almost impossibly skilled. Itachi loved Sasuke deeply, though his duties often pulled him away. Their small moments together, the forehead poke, the quiet smile, the promise of another time, became gentle memories inside a story that was slowly darkening. For Itachi, Sasuke was not just family. He was the future he wanted to protect. But the clan's anger continued to grow. Many Uchiha felt that Konoha had judged them unfairly for the Nine Tails attack, pushing them aside while using their strength when convenient. Fugaku, as the clan head, stood at the center of that rising unrest. The plan for rebellion began to take form, not because the Uchiha were simply cruel, but because many believed they had been cornered, dishonored, and denied a voice. Their pride had become wounded, and wounded pride inside a powerful clan can become dangerous. Shisui tried to stop the coup without bloodshed. With his rare Mangekyo Sharingan ability, Kotoa Matsukami, he hoped to change the path of the clan quietly, guiding them away from rebellion before Konoha answered with force. It was a desperate plan, but also a merciful one. Shisui did not want Uchiha blood spilled in the streets. He did not want children to suffer for the choices of adults. He wanted to use his greatest power not to conquer, but to save. Danzo Shimura, however, did not trust such hope. Fearing Shisui's power and believing the Uchiha could not be allowed to act freely, Danzo stole Shisui's right Mangekyo Sharingan. Wounded and out of options, Shisui entrusted his remaining eye to Itachi and chose death, leaving his friend with both a gift and a terrible burden. That night, Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan awakened through grief. Two gentle geniuses had tried to protect both clan and village, but the darkness around them was closing in, and Itachi was left standing alone before the most painful choice of his life. After Shisui's death, the air around the hidden leaf felt colder for Itachi. He carried his friend's remaining eye, his grief, and the terrible knowledge that the path toward peace was narrowing with every passing day. The Uchiha coup was no longer only a rumor whispered behind closed doors. It was becoming real, moving forward beneath the surface of the village like a hidden flame. Itachi stood between his clan and Konoha, loving both, yet knowing that if one side struck first, the other would answer with devastation. The village elders saw the coup as a threat that could begin another war inside Konoha itself. Hiruzen, the third Hokage, still hoped for a peaceful solution and wanted more time to negotiate, but Danzo moved from the shadows with a colder answer. He gave Itachi the final ultimatum. If the coup went forward, the Uchiha would be destroyed in the conflict that followed. But if Itachi acted first, Sasuke's life would be spared. Itachi was pulled deeper into a choice no child, no brother, and no loyal shinobi should ever have been asked to make. For Itachi, the pain was almost impossible to measure. The Uchiha were not strangers to him. They were his family, his neighbors, his blood, and the people whose name he carried on his back. He understood their anger and the wound that had grown inside them after years of suspicion. But he also saw what a coup would bring: civil war, more death, and enemies from outside the village waiting to strike while Konoha tore itself apart. To stop one disaster, Itachi was forced toward another. In the shadows, Obito appeared wearing the mask of Madara, and Itachi made a terrible arrangement with him. Obito would help him wipe out the clan, but Sasuke was to be spared. That single condition revealed the heart Itachi buried beneath his mission. He could sacrifice his name, his peace, and his place in the world, but he could not take the life of his little brother. Sasuke was the last light he refused to extinguish, the future he wanted to protect, even if that future hated him forever. The night of the massacre came quietly, which made it feel even heavier. The Uchiha district, once full of proud footsteps, family voices, and the steady life of a powerful clan, fell into silence. Itachi moved through the darkness as both executioner and mourner, carrying out the mission that would brand him as a monster. Obito moved through the shadows as well, helping bring an end to the clan whose pain he had helped deepen. The red and white fan of the Uchiha seemed to fade beneath the weight of history. At the heart of that sorrow were Fugaku and Mikoto, Itachi and Sasuke's parents. Fugaku, the clan leader, understood more than he said, and Mikoto faced the end with heartbreaking calm. They did not meet Itachi with rage or fear. In their final moments, they accepted the burden he had chosen, leaving him with a grief deeper than any battlefield wound. Their quiet dignity made the tragedy even more powerful, because the Uchiha were not only warriors of fire and eyes, they were parents, families, and people who loved one another until the end. When Sasuke returned home, he found his world destroyed. The streets that had once held his childhood were silent, and the brother he adored stood before him as the person responsible. Itachi used cruelty as a mask, forcing Sasuke to see him as the villain, pushing hatred into the place where love had once lived. He wanted Sasuke to grow strong enough to survive, strong enough to one day judge him, and strong enough to carry the Uchiha name forward. It was a twisted mercy, but mercy was still hidden inside it. By morning, the Uchiha clan was gone, and Itachi left the village as a criminal. Konoha remembered him as a traitor, Sasuke remembered him as a monster, and the truth disappeared beneath layers of secrecy. Yet behind that terrible name was a boy who had sacrificed everything to prevent a greater war and protect one life above all others. The massacre became the deepest wound in the Uchiha story, but within its darkness, Itachi's love for Sasuke remained like a single, quiet flame, burning through the night that took everything else away. After the night the Uchiha clan disappeared, Sasuke was left behind in a world that felt too large and too empty for one child to carry. The streets of the Uchiha district, once filled with footsteps, voices, training, and family warmth, became silent around him. Everywhere he looked, there were memories of what had been taken. The proud crest on his back no longer felt only like a symbol of family. It became a weight, a promise, and a wound that followed him wherever he went. Sasuke grew up with one purpose burning quietly inside him. He wanted to become strong enough to face Itachi, strong enough to avenge his clan, and strong enough to understand why his beloved brother had destroyed everything. To the other children at the academy, Sasuke seemed calm, gifted, and distant. He was admired by many and approached by few. But beneath that cool silence was a lonely boy who had learned too early that love could vanish in a single night. When Sasuke became part of Team 7, his life began to change in small ways he did not expect. Naruto Uzumaki irritated him almost immediately, loud where Sasuke was quiet, reckless where Sasuke was controlled, and desperate to be acknowledged in a way Sasuke understood more than he wanted to admit. Sakura Haruno admired him deeply, though she was still learning what it truly meant to stand beside someone carrying pain. And Kakashi Hatake, their teacher, carried Obito's Sharingan beneath his headband, connecting Sasuke unknowingly to another broken Uchiha story. At first, Sasuke kept everyone at a distance. His goal was revenge, and revenge did not leave much room for friendship. Still, Team 7 slowly began to reach him. On their early missions, through training, danger, and quiet moments of teamwork, Sasuke started to feel the warmth of comrades again. He would not have called it family, not yet, but something inside him softened when he fought beside Naruto and Sakura. For a boy who had lost everything, even a small bond could feel frightening. During the mission in the Land of Waves, Sasuke's heart showed itself before his pride could hide it. Facing Haku's deadly speed and ice mirrors, Sasuke moved to protect Naruto, taking the attack meant for him. In that moment, he acted before thinking, just as someone precious to him once had. He told himself he did not understand why he had done it, but the truth was simple and powerful. The last child of the Uchiha still had a heart capable of risking itself for someone else. That battle helped Sasuke reawaken and sharpen the Sharingan he had first opened on the night of the massacre, showing the first true bloom of the power sleeping inside him. His crimson eyes opened not only through hatred, but through the instinct to protect. It was a reminder that the Uchiha legacy was never only about darkness. Their greatest powers were tied to emotion, and emotion could come from love, fear, rivalry, or loyalty. Sasuke's eyes carried grief, but they also carried the quiet possibility that he might one day fight for more than revenge. As the Chunin exams began, Sasuke's talent became even clearer. He moved with calm precision, learned quickly, and carried himself with the proud intensity of his clan. Against dangerous enemies, he showed courage beyond his age, and his rivalry with Naruto pushed both boys to grow. Yet the stronger Sasuke became, the more the shadow of Itachi remained in front of him. Every victory felt incomplete because the person he truly wanted to surpass still stood far beyond his reach. Sasuke's story at this point was both inspiring and fragile. He was the survivor of a destroyed clan, a young shinobi carrying a legendary name through loneliness, discipline, and pain. Team 7 gave him something close to light, but revenge still waited in the darkness behind him. The Uchiha fire had not gone out. It lived in Sasuke's eyes, in his silence, and in the way he kept standing after loss. But whether that fire would warm his future or consume it had not yet been decided. The Chunin exams opened a darker door in Sasuke's life, one he could not fully understand at first. Inside the Forest of Death, Team 7 faced danger far beyond an ordinary test, and there Sasuke encountered Orochimaru. The legendary rogue shinobi looked at him not as a child, but as a vessel, a rare Uchiha body carrying the Sharingan and the promise of power. Sasuke fought with courage, but Orochimaru's presence was cold and overwhelming, like a shadow reaching out from a future he had not chosen yet. Orochimaru placed the curse mark on Sasuke's neck, leaving behind a burning seal filled with painful temptation. It was not simply an injury, it was a whisper, a promise that more strength could be his if he allowed darkness to enter deeper. At first, the mark terrified him, twisting his chakra and making his body feel like it belonged partly to someone else. But beneath that fear was something more dangerous, the knowledge that the power felt real, and that power was the one thing Sasuke believed he needed most. Even with the curse mark sealed by Kakashi for a time, Sasuke continued to grow. During the Chunin exams, his Sharingan sharpened, his speed improved, and his confidence returned in brilliant flashes. Against Gaara, he revealed the Chidori, a piercing lightning technique Kakashi had taught him. In that moment, Sasuke looked every bit like the last heir of the Uchiha. Calm, fast, focused, and dazzling beneath the pressure of the arena. His talent was undeniable, and for a while, it seemed like the village might still be enough to guide his fire. But Gaara's terrifying power and Naruto's unexpected growth unsettled him. Naruto, once loud and clumsy in Sasuke's eyes, kept rising through impossible moments, saving others with a strength that came from bonds Sasuke tried not to need. The more Naruto advanced, the more Sasuke felt the ground beneath his own identity shift. If revenge was his purpose, then he could not afford to fall behind. If Itachi still waited ahead of him, then every sign of weakness felt unbearable. Then Itachi returned to the hidden leaf, and Sasuke's fragile confidence broke. Seeing his brother again pulled him back into the night of the massacre, back into the helplessness he had spent years trying to escape. Sasuke charged at Itachi with all the hatred he had sharpened inside himself, but Itachi defeated him easily. The difference between them felt endless. No matter how much Sasuke had trained, no matter how far he had come with Team 7, he was still a child standing before the brother who had destroyed his world. That defeat left Sasuke restless and wounded in a way no medicine could heal. He began to believe the bonds he had formed in Konoha were making him soft, holding him back from the lonely strength he thought revenge demanded. The Sound Four came to him with Orochimaru's invitation, offering the power of the curse mark and a road away from the village. It was a cruel temptation, because it reached the part of Sasuke that feared staying would mean remaining weak forever. Sakura found him as he prepared to leave, and her words carried the sadness of someone trying to stop a friend from vanishing into darkness. She reminded him that Team 7 had become something real, something worth holding on to. For a brief moment, Sasuke listened. He was not heartless, and leaving did not come without pain. But he had already convinced himself that warmth was a chain, and that only by cutting himself away could he become strong enough to face Itachi. So he thanked Sakura quietly and continued into the night. Naruto chased him to the Valley of the End, where the statues of Madara and Hashirama watched over another painful battle between two people tied by rivalry and loneliness. Sasuke and Naruto fought with everything they had, their bond clashing against Sasuke's hunger for power. In the end, Sasuke stood over Naruto in the rain, wounded, shaken, and victorious, yet unable to kill him. He walked away from the village and toward Orochimaru, carrying the Uchiha name deeper into shadow, not because his heart was empty, but because his pain had convinced him that darkness was the only road left. Far from the Hidden Leaf village, Sasuke walked deeper into the life he had chosen beneath Orochimaru's shadow. The warmth of Team 7 faded behind him, but it never truly disappeared. It remained somewhere quiet in his heart, buried beneath training, silence, and the cold purpose that guided every step. Sasuke did not leave Konoha because he had forgotten Naruto, Sakura, or Kakashi. He left because revenge had become louder than every bond trying to call him home. Under Orochimaru, Sasuke grew with frightening speed. His Sharingan sharpened, his sword became an extension of his will, and his lightning style gained a clean, deadly precision. The curse mark still carried danger, but Sasuke learned to control its power instead of simply being controlled by it. He became colder, calmer, and harder to reach, like a flame sealed behind glass. Every lesson, every battle, and every quiet night of training was aimed toward one name: Itachi. Years passed, and when Naruto finally saw Sasuke again, the difference was painful. Sasuke stood before his old teammates with the confidence of someone who had stepped far beyond the boy they remembered. Naruto, Sakura, Yamato, and Sai all felt the weight of his presence, the quiet pressure of an Uchiha who had chosen a lonely road and survived it. For Naruto, seeing Sasuke again was not only a mission, it was the return of the friend he had failed to bring home. Sasuke did not come back with them. His goal had not changed, and his heart was still fixed on the brother waiting at the end of his path. Yet even in that cold reunion, he did not destroy them. Some part of him still held back, even when he tried to act as if all old ties had been cut away. That was one of the quiet tragedies of Sasuke's journey. He wanted to become empty for the sake of revenge, but the bonds he denied still lived inside him. When Orochimaru's body began to weaken, Sasuke saw his chance. The master who had tried to make him a vessel had underestimated the will of the Uchiha. Sasuke turned against him, stepping into the strange inner world where Orochimaru tried to take over his body. But Sasuke's Sharingan saw through the darkness. He overwhelmed Orochimaru and absorbed his power, proving that he had never truly belonged to anyone else's plan. He had used the shadow around him only long enough to sharpen himself. After defeating Orochimaru, Sasuke formed a new team called Hebi. He freed Suigetsu Hozuki, a swordsman with a sharp tongue and a dangerous gift. He recruited Karin, whose sensory ability and fierce loyalty made her valuable, even if her feelings for Sasuke often showed through her attitude. He also brought in Jugo, the origin of the curse mark's power, a gentle soul trapped inside violent urges. Together, they were not a family like Team 7, but they became tools gathered around Sasuke's single purpose: finding Itachi. Their hunt led Sasuke through danger, including a fierce battle with Deidara of the Akatsuki. Deidara hated the Sharingan and wanted to prove his explosive art could defeat Uchiha eyes. The battle was fast, clever, and deadly, with clay bombs filling the sky and Sasuke answering with speed, lightning, and calm calculation. Even when pushed to the edge, Sasuke survived by reading the enemy, adapting, and refusing to fall before reaching his true goal. It was a cool and dangerous display of how far the last Uchiha heir had come. At last, the road began to narrow. Sasuke's search brought him closer to Itachi, the brother who lived in his nightmares and stood at the center of his life's purpose. Everything behind him, the massacre, Team 7, the curse mark, Orochimaru, Hebi, and every lonely choice had led to this approaching moment. Sasuke believed he was walking toward revenge, but unknowingly, he was also walking toward the truth. And beneath the quiet sky, the final battle between the Uchiha brothers waited like a storm about to open. Sasuke's journey finally brought him to the place he had been walking toward since childhood. Across the quiet space before him stood Itachi Uchiha, the brother whose shadow had shaped every choice, every wound, and every sleepless night. For years, Sasuke had imagined this moment as the end of his pain. He believed that if he defeated Itachi, the voices of the lost Uchiha would finally rest, and the emptiness inside him would become something he could understand. Itachi faced him with the same calm that had haunted Sasuke since the massacre. His eyes were tired but still powerful, carrying the weight of secrets Sasuke could not yet see. To Sasuke, that calm looked cruel. It felt like proof that Itachi had never regretted what he had done. But behind Itachi's quiet face was a body weakened by illness, a heart buried beneath sacrifice, and one final mission he had chosen for himself. He had come not simply to fight Sasuke, but to free him from the last shadows clinging to his life. Their battle began like a dance of illusion and memory. Genjutsu folded over genjutsu, and the Sharingan measured every movement, every blink, every hidden intention. The fight between them was not only physical. It was a battle between two brothers trapped inside different versions of the same night. Sasuke fought with years of hatred sharpened into focus, while Itachi guided the battle with a precision that made every moment feel deliberate, as if even his weakness had been woven into the plan. Fire soon filled the battlefield. The brothers unleashed Uchiha Flame against Uchiha Flame, their techniques roaring through the air like the clan itself had returned for one last witness. Sasuke's power was fierce and beautiful, proof that the lonely child Itachi had spared had become a true warrior. He was no longer helpless before his brother. He was fast, intelligent, and relentless, carrying lightning, sword skill, and Sharingan mastery with the pride of the clan on his back. As the battle rose higher, Itachi revealed the terrifying power of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu's black flames burned with a heat that seemed impossible to escape, chasing Sasuke and forcing him to the edge of survival. Sasuke answered with strategy and endurance, shedding danger through Orochimaru's substitution technique and pressing forward even as his body weakened. Every time Itachi seemed beyond reach, Sasuke found a way to keep standing, and that alone made the fight feel like the moment his whole life had prepared him for. Then Sasuke called down Kirin, a lightning technique shaped from the storm itself. The sky cracked open, thunder gathered above, and for one breathtaking moment, Sasuke seemed to command nature's own judgment. The lightning dragon descended with overwhelming force, striking Itachi in a brilliant flash. It was one of Sasuke's greatest displays of skill, patience, and battlefield genius. Yet even that was not enough to end Itachi, who rose again beneath the protection of Susanoo, the mighty guardian of the Mangekyo. As Sasuke's chakra ran low, Orochimaru emerged from within him, sensing weakness and trying to claim the body he had desired for so long. But Itachi had been waiting for that moment. With Susanoo's sacred blade, he sealed Orochimaru away, removing the curse that had followed Sasuke since the Forest of Death. In the middle of what Sasuke believed was revenge, Itachi quietly gave him one final protection. Even while playing the villain, he was still cutting away the poison from his little brother's future. At last, Itachi staggered toward Sasuke, bloodied, exhausted, and near the end of his strength. Sasuke had no chakra left, no certainty left, and no understanding of why his brother continued to move. Itachi reached out, not to steal his eyes, but to touch his forehead with the same gentle gesture from their childhood. Then he smiled faintly and collapsed. Sasuke had finally defeated Itachi, or so he believed. But as the rain began to fall around the fallen brothers, victory felt strangely quiet, and the truth waiting beyond that silence would change the Uchiha story forever. When Sasuke opened his eyes after the battle, the world felt strangely hollow. Itachi was gone, and the revenge that had carried Sasuke for so many years had finally reached its end. Yet there was no peace waiting for him, no warm release from the grief that had shaped his life. Instead, there was only silence, exhaustion, and the memory of Itachi's final touch on his forehead. The brother Sasuke had hated had died with a faint smile, and that smile did not match the monster Sasuke had spent his life trying to defeat. The masked man, Obito, appeared before Sasuke and began to tell him a truth hidden beneath years of lies. To Sasuke, his words sounded impossible at first. Itachi had not destroyed the Uchiha clan out of cruelty, hunger for power, or hatred. He had done it because the village and the clan had been moving towards civil war, and if that war had begun, the hidden leaf might have collapsed from within while other nations attacked from outside. Itachi had been placed before a choice so cruel that no one should have had to carry it. Obito revealed the secret history behind the massacre, the village's suspicion, the Uchiha coup, and the orders that had pushed Itachi into darkness. Itachi had chosen to become hated so that Sasuke could live. He had accepted the name of traitor, criminal, and monster while quietly protecting the village from the shadows as a member of the Akatsuki. Even his return to Konoha after the third Hokage's death had carried a hidden purpose: to remind Danzo and the elders that Sasuke was still not to be touched. Sasuke listened as the shape of his entire life began to break apart. The brother he had cursed was the same brother who had loved him more than anyone. The enemy he had chased was the person who had sacrificed everything for him. Itachi had spared him, guided his hatred, sealed Orochimaru away, and even planted Amaterasu inside him as a final defense against Obito. Every cruel word, every cold glance, and every painful memory now held another meaning beneath it. Sasuke's revenge had been built on a truth he had never been allowed to know. Grief rose inside him with a force deeper than rage. Sasuke remembered Itachi's forehead poke, his quiet patience, and the way he had always promised next time when their peaceful days were still alive. The memories no longer felt like lies. They felt like proof of a love Sasuke had misunderstood until it was too late. His Mangekyo Sharingan awakened from that sorrow, not from victory, but from the crushing weight of realizing that the person he wanted to kill had been protecting him all along. That truth did not heal Sasuke. It changed the direction of his pain. His hatred turned away from Itachi and toward the hidden leaf itself, the village that had allowed his brother to become a sacrifice and then buried the truth beneath silence. Hebi became Taka, and Sasuke's new purpose was no longer simply to avenge the Uchiha clan. He wanted to destroy Konoha for what it had taken from Itachi, believing that the village's peace had been bought with his brother's suffering. To walk that new road, Sasuke and Taka entered the shadow of the Akatsuki and were sent after Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki of the Eight Tails. Their battle against Bee was fierce, strange, and overwhelming. Bee moved with wild rhythm and confidence, using blades, tailed beast chakra, and experience that pushed Sasuke farther than he expected. Taka fought together to survive, with Suigetsu, Karin, and Jugo all protecting one another through the storm of B's power. For the first time in a long while, Sasuke's new team became more than tools around him. They became people he had to rely on. When Sasuke awakened Amaterasu in battle, the black flames showed the terrifying strength of his new Mangekyo, but they also revealed the danger of the path ahead. He saved Karin from the flames after realizing she had been caught in them, a quiet sign that some part of him still responded to bonds, even while he denied them. Taka believed they had captured Killer B, though B cleverly escaped by using a substitution. Sasuke moved forward unaware, carrying Itachi's eyes, Itachi's truth, and a grief so powerful it had become a new darkness burning in the name of love. With Itachi's truth burning inside him, Sasuke moved toward a darker kind of revenge. The Hidden Leaf was no longer simply the village he had left behind. In his eyes, it had become the place that used his brother, buried his sacrifice, and allowed the Uchiha name to be erased in silence. Taka followed him into the shadow of that anger, but Sasuke's heart was becoming harder to reach. The more he carried Itachi's love, the more he twisted that love into a blade pointed at the world. His path led him to the 5 Kage Summit, where the leaders of the great shinobi nations had gathered to discuss the growing threat of the Akatsuki. It was a place guarded by powerful warriors, samurai, and some of the strongest ninja alive. Sasuke entered that world like a storm walking through a quiet hall. He was no longer the lonely child from the Uchiha district, or even the missing nin chasing one brother through the darkness. He had become a dangerous flame with the Mangekyo Sharingan burning in his eyes. The first wave of battle showed how far Sasuke had fallen and how far he had risen. Samurai surrounded him, but his movements were sharp, cold, and fearless. His Susanoo began to form around him, first as a skeletal guardian, then as a darker symbol of the hatred taking shape inside his heart. The power was magnificent, but heavy. Every strike made him seem more legendary, yet every step pulled him farther from the bonds that had once kept him human. Then came the Raikage, a warrior of overwhelming speed, strength, and rage. After believing Sasuke had helped capture his brother Killer B, the Raikage attacked with the fury of someone protecting family. Their clash was fierce and brutal, lightning armor against Sharingan vision, raw physical power against the black flames of Amaterasu. Sasuke fought with terrifying focus, wrapping his Susanoo in dark fire, while the Raikage pressed forward even when danger touched his own body. It was a battle of 2 men driven by love that had turned into wrath. Gaara stepped in before the fight could end in total ruin. Once a lonely Jinchuriki saved by Naruto's friendship, Gaara looked at Sasuke and saw someone standing near the edge of a road he understood too well. He spoke not only as Kazekage, but as someone who knew what hatred could do to a person's soul. For a moment, his words reached the sadness beneath Sasuke's anger, but not enough to turn him back. Sasuke's silence was colder than before, and Gaara wept quietly for the friend Naruto still refused to abandon. The summit became a long descent through danger. Sasuke faced the Mizukage Mei Terumi, whose lava and boil release pushed him into terrible exhaustion. He was nearly overwhelmed by the Tsuchikage Onoki as well, whose particle-style power could erase everything it touched. Again and again, Sasuke survived not because he was untouched, but because his will refused to break. Yet the cost was clear. His eyes strained, his chakra faded, and his choices grew more reckless with every battle. The Uchiha fire was burning too hot, and even his own body could not bear it forever. Obito pulled Sasuke from death and turned the summit toward an even greater revelation, declaring the coming of the 4th Great Ninja War. But Sasuke's own hunt was not finished. His true target was Danzo Shimura, the man who carried stolen Sharingan beneath his bandages and one of Shisui's eyes hidden for his own use. When Sasuke finally faced him, the battle became more than revenge. It became the last child of the Uchiha standing before one of the men who had helped shape his clan's destruction. Against Danzo, Sasuke's hatred reached one of its darkest points. Danzo used Izanagi again and again, sacrificing stolen Sharingan to bend death away from himself, while Sasuke pressed forward with Susanoo, Amaterasu, and merciless focus. Karin supported him until Sasuke, consumed by revenge, wounded through her to strike Danzo, showing how far grief had dragged him from the boy who once protected his friends. Danzo died still trying to protect his own version of Konoha, and Sasuke stood victorious, but colder than ever. The battle made him look powerful, almost unstoppable, but it also revealed the sorrow beneath his strength. The last Uchiha was winning fights while losing himself. After Danzo's death, Sasuke's darkness reached a dangerous silence. He had avenged Itachi against one of the men tied to the Uchiha tragedy, but the victory did not calm him. Sakura tried to reach him and nearly became another person swallowed by his revenge. Kakashi stood before his former student with sorrow and responsibility, ready to stop the boy he had once trained. Then Naruto arrived, carrying the same promise he had made long ago. He would not give up on Sasuke, no matter how far away he seemed. For a moment, the two old rivals clashed again, Chidori against Rasengan, their powers meeting like a memory from the Valley of the End. Naruto could feel how deep Sasuke's hatred had become, but he also understood that their fates were tied together. Sasuke could not be dragged back by force, and Naruto could not pretend the pain inside him was simple. Obito took Sasuke away before the confrontation could go further, and soon after, Sasuke received Itachi's eyes, awakening the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The Uchiha flame grew stronger, but the question of where it would burn still remained unanswered. Then the Fourth Great Ninja War began, and the Uchiha legacy returned to the battlefield in overwhelming form. Kabuto used reanimation to bring back Madara Uchiha, not as a rumor, not as a mask, but as the true legend himself. When Madara stood before the allied shinobi forces, the battlefield seemed to grow colder beneath his presence. He moved through armies with terrifying grace, using taijutsu, fire style, Sharingan, Rinnegan, and Susanoo as if every form of combat belonged naturally in his hands. Madara's power felt almost unreal. He dropped meteors from the sky, forced entire divisions to tremble, and revealed a perfect Susanoo so enormous it seemed like a warrior carved from myth. To the shinobi world, this was the old fear of the Uchiha given living shape again. Yet there was also something majestic in him, a reminder of how powerful one wounded dreamer had become. Madara was not simply strong. He was history walking back into the present, carrying all the pride, grief, and danger of the clan's ancient fire. At the same time, Itachi returned through reanimation, but unlike many others, his will found a way to shine through the control placed over him. Thanks to the crow he had left with Naruto and Shisui's eye hidden within it, Itachi broke free from Kabuto's command. Even in death, Itachi was still protecting the future with careful hands. He fought alongside Naruto and Killer Bee against Nagato, then moved with quiet purpose toward the source of the reanimation itself, determined to end the jutsu and reduce the suffering of the war. Sasuke found Itachi again, and this time the meeting was different. There was no false villain mask, no final duel built on hatred, and no cruel performance meant to push Sasuke forward. Sasuke chased after him, demanding answers, still unable to understand how his brother could protect the village after everything it had done. Together, the Uchiha brothers faced Kabuto, whose body and mind had been twisted by stolen power and a desperate search for identity. Their teamwork was calm, precise and beautiful, a glimpse of what they might have been if the world had been kinder. Itachi used Izanami, a forbidden Uchiha technique, to trap Kabuto in a loop until he could accept the truth of himself. It was not a power meant simply to destroy, but to force reflection, to guide someone out of denial. After Kabuto released the reanimation, Itachi's time began to fade. Before disappearing, he showed Sasuke the truth from his own memories and finally spoke without hiding behind cruelty. He told Sasuke he would love him always, no matter what path he chose. For the first time, Sasuke received his brother's love without a lie wrapped around it. That final goodbye changed Sasuke's heart enough to make him seek the truth instead of rushing blindly forward. He revived Orochimaru and went to the old Uchiha stone tablet, then summoned the previous Hokage to ask what the village truly was and what it meant to be a shinobi. Listening to Hashirama speak of Madara, sacrifice, dreams, and the fragile meaning of Konoha, Sasuke began to understand the burden Itachi had carried. At last, he chose to step onto the battlefield not to destroy the village, but to protect the future. When he arrived beside Naruto and Sakura, the last Uchiha heir stood beneath the war-torn sky with new resolve, ready to turn his clan's painful legacy towards something greater. When Sasuke stepped onto the battlefield beside Naruto and Sakura, it felt as if Team 7 had returned beneath a sky torn open by war. The world around them was filled with danger, but for one powerful moment, the three students of Kakashi stood together again. Sasuke's eyes carried the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Naruto carried the strength of Kurama and every bond he had protected, and Sakura stood with the courage she had earned through her own growth. The last Uchiha was no longer walking away from the battle. He had chosen to stand in it. The war grew even greater as Obito, carrying the Ten Tails within him, became something close to a god. His power bent the battlefield, shattered hope, and forced the shinobi world to face the pain he had carried since Rin's death. But Naruto reached for him, not as an enemy alone, but as someone who understood loneliness and broken dreams. Obito began to remember the boy who once wanted to become Hokage, the boy who gave Kakashi his eye, the boy who still existed somewhere beneath the mask. In the end, Obito turned against the darkness he had followed, giving what strength he had left to help protect the future. Madara then rose higher than ever, becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki and casting a shadow over the entire world. His dream of peace through illusion finally neared completion, and the infinite Tsukuyomi spread across the sky like a false moonlit salvation. But Sasuke, protected by the power he received from Hagoromo, stood against that dream with the Rinnegan awakened in one eye. Beside Naruto, he became one of the only people able to challenge the ancient darkness behind the war. The Uchiha power that had once threatened to trap the world in dreams was now helping fight to free it. When Kaguya Otsutsuki emerged from behind Madara's plan, the battle reached the oldest root of the shinobi world. Naruto and Sasuke fought together across strange dimensions, using everything they had become to face a power older than the villages, older than the clans, and older than the hatred between Indra and Ashura. With Sakura, Kakashi, and even Obito's final help, they found the opening they needed. Sasuke and Naruto sealed Kaguya away, ending the ancient threat and bringing the long war close to its quiet end. But Sasuke's heart was not fully at peace. After everything he had learned, he still believed the world needed to be changed by force, and he chose one final path of solitude. He declared his intention to become a lone shadow who would carry all hatred himself, cutting away the past so no one else could repeat its mistakes. To him, this was a kind of revolution. To Naruto, it was another lonely road, another way of running from the bonds that had always been waiting for him. Their final battle brought them back to the Valley of the End, where Madara and Hashirama's statues still faced each other across the water. Once again, two reincarnated wills stood beneath the weight of history, but this time the fight carried the hope of breaking the cycle. Sasuke used the full power of his eyes, his Susanoo, and the chakra of the tailed beasts, while Naruto answered with everything he had gained through friendship, pain, and unshakable belief. Their clash lit the valley like the last storm of an ancient feud. By the end, both boys were exhausted, wounded, and lying beneath the broken sky. Each had lost an arm, and neither had the strength left to keep fighting. But Naruto had never been trying only to win. He had been trying to reach Sasuke, to prove that his friend did not have to carry pain alone. In that stillness, Sasuke finally understood. The bond he had tried so hard to cut had survived every battle, every betrayal, and every dark road. Naruto had kept reaching for him until the lonely fire inside him no longer had to burn by itself. Sasuke accepted defeat, but more than that, he accepted the truth of connection. He returned to the village not as the proud avenger he had once imagined, but as someone ready to atone. Sakura still cared for him, Kakashi still believed he could walk forward, and Naruto had never stopped calling him friend. The Uchiha story, born from Indra's loneliness and carried through Madara's grief, Obito's heartbreak, Itachi's sacrifice, and Sasuke's pain, did not end in hatred. It ended with the last surviving heir of the old Uchiha tragedy choosing redemption, protecting the world from the shadows, and carrying his clan's name into the future with quiet honor. And that is the story of the Uchiha Clan, a legacy shaped by pain, power, sacrifice, and the courage to change. Their fire burned through darkness, but in the end, it became a light pointing toward redemption. If you enjoyed this sleepy anime story, please like, subscribe, and come back for another peaceful journey with Sleepy Otaku Stories.